have an active shooter.
Let's go ahead and declare this a mass casualty.
Welcome to Active Shooter, a podcast that covers the whys, the hows, and the aftermath of active shooter and mass casualty events.
They have an active shooter in the building. A second call says they are being attacked.
I've been shot.
169 San Easy, we got shots fired. 4:15 at Route 291. Sounded like an automatic firearm.
Active shooter, reports of an active shooter,
mass casualty incidents.
Thank you for listening.
You are listening to Active Shooter, a podcast that may contain adult themes, explicit language, and graphic depictions of violence. Portions of this show may be traumatic for those under 18. Listener discretion is advised.
Interrupting programming tonight for breaking news out of Greenwood, updating you on a story we first brought you during our 6 p.m. news. Several people, police confirm, have been injured in a shooting at the Greenwood Park Mall. That shooting happened just before 6 o'clock tonight. We also have just learned from police. They confirm that the shooter, the suspect in that shooting, has died. No confirmation yet on any other fatalities, but again, several people injured, and the gunman at the incident at Greenwood Park Mall has died.
According to Alert, the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training at Texas State University, data shows that there were 434 active shooter attacks in the United States between 2000 and 2021. These attacks are defined by one or more shooters who kill or attempt to kill multiple unrelated people in a populated place. Of these 434 cases, an armed bystander shot the active shooter in 22 of the incidents. Of the 22 bystander interventions, 10 were when the bystander was an off-duty police officer or security guard. It isn't difficult to deduce that it is incredibly rare for an armed civilian to stop the threat of an active shooter. While the rise of Amazon and online shopping have resulted in the near extinction of most brick-and-mortar malls, they still do exist, and yes, many people still patronize malls as much as, or perhaps even more, than online shopping. An open mall becomes a shooter's paradise of opportunity, and means to harm many, many people in close proximity to each other, and in a very expedient manner. What prevented today's shooting from being so much more deadly than it was is the intervention of an innocent, armed bystander. Active Shooter, the podcast, is a High Five Holly production, and I'm your host, JT. If you've listened to our prior episodes, you know that the Active Shooter podcast team has taken the No Notoriety Pledge, and we will not be sharing the real name of the shooters that we cover. We will be giving the shooters a pseudonym and refer to them by that name throughout the episode. This will help in clearing up any confusion in the story, while remaining true to our pledge in not naming the shooter by their actual name. We will refer to today's shooter as Yael. Sunday, July 17th, 2022, wasn't a perfect summer day. It was a mostly normal day. Not too hot, nor too chilly, not sunny, nor rainy, but rather mid-temps with gray clouds that overcast the unremarkable day. Patrons of the Greenwood Park Mall were hurrying about, wrapping up some last-minute shopping, whether that was for vacation apparel, early back-to-school shopping, or perhaps grabbing a quick bite to eat before catching a movie. It was nearly closing time, and many of the mall stores had already closed the front gates of their stores, so the employees could complete their nightly closing duties before heading home, or out for the evening. It was around 4:30 p.m. when 20-year-old Yael walked to the mall located at 1251 U.S. Highway 31 North in Greenwood, Johnson County, Indiana. The city of pride and progress is about 15 miles south of the sprawling metropolis that is Indianapolis. With him, Yael carried a Smith & Wesson M&P 15 semi-automatic rifle, which he left behind in the mall restroom, a Glock 33 pistol that he carried, but didn't use, and a Sig Sauer M400 semi-automatic rifle that he carried out the shooting with. Yael transported each of the weapons on his person, in a backpack, slung across his back. Inside the bag, he also carried 100 rounds of ammunition, and he wore a waistband holster which carried extra ammunition. Outwardly, he appeared to be a normal young kid walking to the mall with a backpack, wearing blue jeans and a white button-up shirt. Yael didn't possess a driver's license, which is why he walked everywhere. His apartment in the Polo Park Apartments was about a mile from the mall, located at 800 Kings Mill Road. Yael reached the mall at approximately 4:54 p.m. and headed straight towards the restrooms that are located near the food court. He was inside the bathroom for a little over an hour. What exactly he did with that time is unknown, though police suspect he was assembling the Sig Sauer. He emerged from the bathroom at 5:56 p.m. and immediately opened fire. Because of the proximity to the food court, Yael essentially had an open range to shoot at unsuspecting victims and survivors. People began running away from the food court, screaming, "Shooter! Shooter!" Within moments of the initial shots, 911 calls began flooding dispatchers, who were fielding calls from mall employees and customers alike. As is the case with each and every shooting we've ever covered, the scene was complete and utter chaos. People were running for exits, bathrooms, or desperately seeking any place they could hide, or even partially conceal themselves.
I just looked at my kids and I told them, "Come on, let's go." And we started running, and in the midst of us running, I fell. I got my knee skinned up, and I looked up, and I only see one of my kids. So my other two got separated from us.
When you looked back at the crime scene, what could you see?
I don't remember. I just looked back. It was empty. I remember seeing somebody laying down, but it was empty.
Some of the stores that had closed their gates reopened them to allow petrified customers to seek shelter in the safety of their back rooms, behind tightly locked gates. Less than a minute after the shooting started, a police officer reported seeing people running out of the mall, and by 5:57, an ambulance and other first responders were already dispatched.
Where's your emergency?
We're at the Greenwood Park Mall. Shots were just fired.
Shots fired in the Greenwood Park Mall?
Shots fired several times, sir, several times.
Where at? Do you know where?
Food court, in the food court. In the food court in the Greenwood Park Mall on US 31.
Okay, is anybody shot?
I don't know, sir. I ran. There's an active shooter in the Greenwood Mall, please.
What happened?
There's an active shooter.
An active shooter?
Yes, in the Greenwood Mall, please.
Where? Okay, ma'am, listen. Where in the mall is they? Where in the mall are they?
By the food court, there's 3 people dead.
By the food. Listen, by the food court.
Yes.
Okay. Is it a male? Listen, is it a male or a female? I need you to give me information.
From what I can tell, from what I see, it looks like a male.
A male? Okay, where's the male?
He's dead on the ground.
Okay. Is the male the one that was shooting?
Yes. There was a shooting at the Greenwood Mall.
Okay, how many shots have you heard?
There's like 15, 12. I don't know. There was just a lot of them.
Okay, what I need
Everyone ran.
Okay, you need to either hide somewhere or get away, okay?
We're leaving the building right now.
Okay, get out as fast as you can. Okay, you can do that or you can hide.
Location emergency. There's a shooting, active shooting in the Greenwood Park Mall.
We're outside the mall. In the food court?
Yes.
Did you see the shooter?
No, we heard the guns going off and ran. We're hiding in the AT&T store.
Okay. All right, stay hidden in the mall. We have help on the way.
911, where's your emergency? Yes, the Greenwood Mall. Active shooter. Do you know how many there are?
No. I'm walking with.
Where are you in the mall?
I don't have my purse. I can't breathe.
Where are you, ma'am?
I'm at the movie theater.
You're where?
I'm at the movie theater.
Okay.
Ringo Stadium. 14.
Okay, ma'am, are you injured? Are you shot? Okay, ma'am, we're trying to get help to you as fast as possible.
One second, I'm going to transfer to Johnson County.
Oh, the police is here already.
The response was hasty, and by 6:08 p.m., EMTs entered the mall with a SWAT team and quickly set up a triage station just outside the corridor to the food court. At 6:15, police reported they had located the shooter. Upon first contact, Yael had a pulse, but it faded fast, and he was pronounced dead on the scene. Three people were killed and 2 others were shot and injured, but survived. Victor Gomez was shot and killed first. He was lingering near the bathroom when Yael started shooting and never stood a chance against the evil he faced. The 30-year-old man was rushed to St. Francis Hospital and Health Center, where he was ultimately pronounced deceased due to multiple gunshot wounds. After killing Victor, Yael pivoted and fired at a nearby table. He struck and killed 56-year-old Pedro Pineda and 37-year-old Rosa Pineda, a married couple who were eating dinner together and probably never even had time to react. They were rushed together to the St. Francis Hospital and Health Center, where each was eventually pronounced deceased due to multiple gunshot wounds. A 22-year-old woman was also shot in the leg. She survived the physical injuries after receiving treatment at a local hospital. The other shooting survivor is a 12-year-old girl named Bella, who was at the mall with her grandmother and 2 sisters. Her grandma and one of her sisters managed to crawl into a shoe store and hide in the back room. Bella was running for an exit alongside one of her sisters when she was hit by a bullet fragment. She felt something that felt like she was being stabbed in the back, but it turns out a bullet fragment had ricocheted off a wall and hit her. She was taken to the hospital and released to her terrified parents that night.
How did you discover the bullet fragment in your daughter's back?
They had come back into, my husband brought him home. They had come into the garage and I was awaiting there to hug my daughters to say, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful that everybody was okay. And that's when I went to hug Bella and she, no mom, don't touch me, my back hurts. I'm like, what? And so I'm like, did somebody hit you or something? And she, no, I don't know. And as I went to go look, I put her shirt back a little ways and it was kind of stuck. And that's when I realized there was an actual piece of a bullet sticking out of her back and it was right over her spine area.
Yael managed to fire 24 rounds before he was eventually taken down. The armed citizen, 22-year-old Elijah Dickon, exchanged gunfire with Yael about 15 seconds after the shooting started. Elijah was at the mall shopping with his girlfriend, legally carrying a firearm, when he heard the commotion and people shouting about an active shooter. He was approximately 40 yards from Yael when he fired off 10 shots from a Glock handgun. 8 of the 10 hit Yael, who was able to shoot back at Elijah, but he didn't make any contact. He stumbled back towards the bathrooms, but fell to the ground instead. He died as a result of numerous injuries. The reason Elijah shot as many times as he did should be noted. Whether an armed civilian or a trained police officer, they fire at an active shooter multiple times, because the shooter usually has adrenaline coursing through them, which makes one bullet shot difficult to actually down the threat. Which leads into the second point, that they need to stop the threat. If the threat is able to keep moving, they can presumably keep shooting, and that continues to put everyone else at risk of serious harm or death. After he fired and downed Yael, Elijah located mall security guards and explained that he neutralized the suspect and stood with the guards awaiting police intervention. Elijah was placed in handcuffs and taken into custody by the Greenwood police. They reviewed mall security footage, which confirmed Elijah's description and statement of events, and he was ultimately released by police and eventually hailed as a hero for preventing so much more loss of life. Once the mall was cleared, police searched the bathroom that Yael had spent so much time in, and once inside, they located his cell phone submerged inside of a toilet bowl. His backpack was also there, filled with ammunition and a rifle. There were other miscellaneous items belonging to Yael found in the bathroom and collected as evidence. The eventual investigation led the police to Yael's apartment, which was searched for about 3 hours between midnight and 3 a.m. While they raided the apartment, police evacuated several of the nearby residents as a precaution, though they stood around outside watching the raid be executed. It's not uncommon for active shooters like Yael to booby-trap their homes, hoping to take more innocent lives even after the shooting. Inside the apartment, the oven was set for an unusually high temperature, and inside the oven was a laptop and a can of butane, which is a highly flammable gas that can act as lighter fuel. A bomb squad was called to the mall to examine Yael's backpack and ensure there were no explosives, and there weren't. During an autopsy, a toxicology test was performed on Yael. He was discovered to have traces of codeine, which is found in cigarettes or another tobacco type of product containing nicotine. Traces of caffeine were also reported, but no alcohol, prescription, or illegal drugs were found. Pedro Pineda was born on March 12, 1966, in El Salvador. He managed to leave behind a life of poverty when he came to the United States in 2007 with his wife Rosa. He dreamed of making a better life for his 6 children, who all came to the U.S. with Pedro and Rosa. Pedro loved his family, especially playing with his grandkids, and he is described as incredibly humble and very friendly and laid back. Indeed, one of his favorite pastimes was fishing. He worked in construction doing repairs and painting homes. Rosa Miriam Rivera de Pineda was called Rosie by those who knew and loved her. She was happiest with her family and even loved the other children equally as much. She was known to babysit the neighborhood children frequently. Rosa was very active in the Indianapolis Hispanic community and thrived when she was giving back in some way. A GoFundMe was established for the couple and raised almost $30,000 to help with funeral expenses and any other needs the family has. Everyone will miss Pedro and Rosa deeply. They were beloved in their community and by all friends and family. Victor Gomez was born on February 11, 1992, in Alachua County, Florida. He graduated from Perry Meridian High School in 2010. A small business owner, his company, True Marble and Granite LLC, installed and supplied granite in and around the Indianapolis area. Victor was married to his own Rosa, the love of his life, for the last 14 years, and was the father to son Jaden and daughters Dolce and Ashley. He'd give you the shirt off his back, and was a hard-working, devoted family man with a wonderful sense of humor. A GoFundMe was set for Victor's family as well, and it also raised about $30,000. The Greenwood Park Mall, owned by the Simon Property Group, has 149 stores, with 4 major anchor stores, including Von Maur, JCPenney, Macy's, and Dick's Sporting Goods. The mall covers about 1,287,869 square feet of total retail space, and is the 4th largest shopping mall in the state of Indiana, that sits atop an 87-acre site. It opened in 1996 as the Greenwood Shopping Center, but was later renovated and reopened as the Greenwood Park Mall. Greenwood, Indiana is located in Johnson County, and according to the 2020 census, the population was just under 64,000 residents. The city shares a border with Indianapolis and is the most populous suburb in the southern portion of the Indianapolis metropolitan area. Greenwood spans a total area of just under 28 square miles and is known for its lush green parks and outdoor activities. There are 17 parks which contain over 400 acres of land and more than 20 miles of biking and walking trails. Greenwood is home to Indiana Baptist College, Indiana Wesleyan University, a regional education and conference center, and the Indiana Institute of Technology Regional Campus. Yael was born on November 30th, 2001, and attended Greenwood High School. His father lives in Surprise, Arizona, and mother lives in Indianapolis. He had very little internet history, certainly nothing that would shed any light on his mental state, political views, or even his general disposition. There were 4 photos and 1 4chan post that were of any evidentiary value. 4chan is an anonymous image board site that is popular among extremists, and has been linked to several ideologically motivated killings. On the day of the shooting, Yael posted at 1:13 p.m., although the content of the post isn't clear. There were also the photos, as mentioned, and one of which included a colorized photo of a wedding in Nazi Germany. He also posted pictures of himself wearing the exact same shirt and pants he wore during the shooting, a white button-down shirt, blue jeans, and a face covering. In those same photos, he posed with 2 AR-15 style rifles and a handgun with multiple magazines. One post had Yael introducing himself by saying, quote, "My name is," and, quote, "Today seems like a good day to die." In May of 2022, Yael resigned from his job at a warehouse, and just before the shooting he received an eviction notice for his apartment. He didn't have a criminal history that was significant. All police interactions were when he was a minor, and included running away from home and starting a fight in school. Either could be a possible red flag, yet both are very common things young juveniles do and aren't necessarily predictors of an active shooter in the making. Yael's folks divorced in 2017, and that is when his dad moved to Arizona. His mom lost her job, and on September 6, 2018, Yael's brother sought guardianship over him. He'd been fighting to take guardianship ever since their parents divorced, as his mother was living in a women's shelter, and he didn't want his brother on the street. Before living with his brother, Yael and his mom lived in a week-to-week motel until March of 2017, when he was placed in foster care. He was kicked out after a, quote, "occurrence of abuse," but no additional details were provided. From there, Yael went to live with his brother. Before transitioning to his brother's house, however, Yael's mom was charged with 5 counts of alleged child abuse or neglect. The outcome of the charges isn't clear, but one thing that is known is Yael's father agreed to allow guardianship to his brother, but Mom would not agree. In the end, her approval wouldn't matter, but before any decision was final, she wrote a letter to the court on October 2, 2018. In it, she wrote that she, quote, had a stable, loving, positive, and nurturing environment, and that she could provide a clean home, devoid of drugs, and a nice apartment. She claimed she was a CNA and had been for over a year in Beech Grove, working for a company that was paying for her to attend nursing school. On October 18, 2018, Yael's brother was appointed temporary guardian. Later, in 2019, an order was signed that provided Yael's older brother full guardianship. This estranged the family and drove a wedge between mother and sons. In the meantime, Yael had been practicing his shooting skills at the same place where he purchased ammunition, Rance, USA. Records indicated that he was frequenting Range USA for about 2 years, beginning in 2020. On March 8, 2022, Yael bought a Sig Sauer model 400M 5.56 caliber rifle in Greenwood, and the following day, he bought an M&P 15.556, also in Greenwood. While it wasn't expressly stated, it can be presumed that the firearms were also purchased at Range USA, since this is where he exclusively went target shooting and bought ammo. At the time of the shooting, he was living in an apartment alone and didn't drive due to the aforementioned lack of a driver's license. He mainly walked or took an Uber if he needed to go somewhere. The FBI attempted to recover data from Yael's laptop that was found inside the oven, but nothing could be retrieved due to the heat from the oven, which damaged the laptop beyond any possible forensic analysis. His parents released a statement indicating they could offer no words or explanations as to why their son committed this atrocious act. They said they were as entirely shocked as the community, and that they'd spoken to their son only days before the shooting, and he seemed in good spirits, and even discussed future plans. They continued by offering that they held no ill will towards Elijah for doing what he felt needed to be done to spare lives. The Greenwood Mall reopened for business 2 days later, on July 19th, 2022. 2 days later, a photo of the shooter was posted on 4chan. The photo showed the shooter covered in blood, surrounded by empty bullet casings, with the word "dead" etched on the side. How or where the photos were obtained to be posted is unknown. Only 3 hours after the Greenwood Mall shooting, a person was killed and 3 more were injured in a shooting at Don Chalice Park, which was only 7 miles south of Greenwood in Beech Grove, which is another suburb of Indianapolis. EMS was unable to respond to the second shooting as they were at the mall shooting, so EMS from a neighboring town responded. The Greenwood Police Department had received multiple mass shooter training, and also practiced several mall exercises to prepare for this exact scenario. The people that were killed in the shooting were Hispanic, yet it doesn't appear that the crime was racially motivated, and there wasn't any evidence that suggests as such. The shooting happened a week after the state of Indiana dropped its requirement for a permit to purchase and carry a handgun in public. It doesn't seem that it would have prevented this shooting, but it is still worth noting. Private businesses can still have their own firearms restrictions, and the Simon Property Group, which owns the Greenwood Park Mall, along with several other surrounding malls around the country, stated in its code of conduct that, quote, no weapons are permitted on the properties. The rule does, however, state that, quote, exceptions to this code of conduct will be determined by local center management. After the shooting, the mall released a statement saying they were thankful for the strong response from authorities and also praised the brave actions of Elijah for stopping the gunman. It's impossible to say whether this shooting could have been prevented, because it's so difficult to see what went wrong and where. On the surface, and even digging deeper, it can be at least speculated that stricter gun laws may have resulted in a different outcome. Certainly, active shooter education and training has proven time and time again to be a factor in mitigating the loss of life. We all have the unique ability to help prevent such a catastrophic event from happening, if we keep our eyes and ears open and never hesitate to report when something or someone just doesn't seem right. It is our sincerest wish that there will be no more active or mass shooting stories to tell. We pray that love will prevail over hate.
Too many have died! We should say to ourselves, not one more!
In the meantime, we urge our listeners to stay aware of your surroundings and keep in touch with your loved ones. If you see something, say something. You never know how many lives you'll be saving. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Active Shooter, the podcast. Remember, if you see something, say something. There's no telling how many lives you may be saving. A big thank you to Darren Curtis, who composed some of the songs on our show. You can find him online at www.darrencurtismusic.com. Make sure to check us out on social media. You can find us on Facebook at Active Shooter, the podcast, and on Twitter at Podcast Active. Thank you, and be safe.